Jada Pinkett-Smith sat down on these white people's television with Hoda Gotta Be There to tell us, among other things, something we already knew. Fendi like the bag. This is the I Refuse podcast. It's Mr. Fox, the I Refuse podcast. I almost made it through the week, minding my good African American business. And lo and behold, Jada Pinkett-Smith decides she wants to sit down on Good Morning USA or Coffee Wake Up with America with Hoda Gotta Be There to share with us something a lot of us already knew, that she has been separated from Will Smith since 2016. Those of us that perused the Red Table Talk a couple years ago were already well aware since 2020 that Will Smith and Jada Pinkett have been separated since 2016, when she had Will Smith on the Red Table Talk and he said, "Yeah, I just stopped liking your ass." And then they both laughed right after they said they had been separated since 2016. But here's the thing, right? Y'all, because even though they're black, that's their business. Like, I'm not even tripping off of that. I wasn't really tripping off of the whole open marriage thing. A lot of people threw themselves on the sword over it because we don't have that many successful black married couples in Hollywood at the time. You know, Jada and Will have been married since 1997. And in the 90s, the big thing was black love, and if they can make it, I can make it. Even though they're in Hollywood and I have a regular 9-to-5 job, there's hope. I blame Cosmopolitan for filling y'all's head with this, the glamorization and wrapping oneself up into the image of people that don't even know y'all. So when they mentioned it in 2020 on Red Table Talk, everybody clearly missed it because people came to the Red Table Talk at that time to get the deets on this August Alsina situation. A lot of us were like, oh, okay, well, I mean, you have an open marriage, open relationship, whatever. That's really no big deal. It's unfortunate that it played out the way that it did publicly because it made August Alsina, who's known to be feisty, depending on who you ask, a little sassy, and just a moody R&B guy from the trap, right? He was out here in the streets doing interviews in his good Rogue from X-Men wig, and was really looking rough, and was doing the whole, I got involved in an entanglement with Miss Jada, and she just kind of, and I'm paraphrasing, she just kind of discarded me, and now I'm down here in your garage doing this podcast video telling you about it in my good Keisha Cole first album wig. When she was like, "When you gonna give it up to me?" That one. The one I was sliding damn near off her skull in the Sean Paul video. But nevertheless, I'm digressing. We totally missed that y'all totally missed that in 2020. And it shows because y'all are surprised now. And I understand Hoda got to be there, has to ask the questions. I know she's aiming possibly to be the next Oprah. by being a little intrusive after reading, I guess it's supposed to be Jada Pinkett's memoir called Worthy that's coming out in next week, I believe, on the 17th. So I understand you got to ask the questions. There were some other things in the interview that she had asked her or Jada had divulged because there was a lot that has happened in the last 10 years involving Jada and Will. The antics, the controversy, the rebelling against the Oscars because Will missed out or lost the Best Actor win for Concussion. The movie was good, but I mean, at this point, it's like Will Smith is known for giving a steady, decent performance. And he's not going to give you like a Broadway studied, theater trained performance a la Denzel. But he has like a steady catalog of movies and performances, right? A lot of people can say, Ali was probably his one standout. Unfortunately, when it comes to Will Smith's catalog, having that crown of being the king of summer early on, you set a precedence or an expectation to keep that going. And I think a lot of people get wrapped up in the commercial side or how much he brings in to really sit back and be like, damn, he really is like a really great actor with a lot of range. He's decent. Isn't really a rangy kind of actor. Like, he's not the first person that comes to mind. But nevertheless, Jada Pinkett-Smith has this book coming out. It's the season of the memoir. And personally, I'm like, why now? And why should we care? The focal point, the piece from the entire interview that's making the rounds is about the separation that happened 7 years ago. And it's going to be a day down on the Bird app talking about this as if it's not already tepid tea at this point. It's just like, what more can you tell us that we don't already know? Like, you've made your rounds, you're known to make your rounds on Watch What Happens Live, on your red table down in your studio. Anytime there's news about you, right? So we already know just about everything. From essentially the time you got married to now. And the things that would really sell your book, you probably can't go into details about. You probably can't go into details about Scientology because we know how they kind of operate. We theorize. We pay attention, though. You can't really go into how you and Will really got together. Was it after he got divorced? Or was it while he was still legally married to Sheree? Again, technically not any of my business. But there was something from Will's appearance on the Red Table Talk. Maybe probably from the same episode that they were talking about the separation and the entanglement. And keep in mind, August and Jada were dating. August was not a pass around. I wanted to clarify that, allegedly. So from that same appearance, Will said something to the effect of, I remember the first time I saw your mother speaking to their kids at the table. I was with somebody else at the time, and I went in the bathroom and cried, or something he said to that effect. So that got me thinking. They got married in 1997. let's say they traditionally a relationship courting to marriage, roughly 2 to 3 years. And it's often been said that originally Jada was almost up for the role of Lisa in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, but she didn't get the job because she was too short, they said. Um, Jada Pinkett is roughly, I think, 4'9", 5 feet even, which is considerably shorter than Nia Long, who got the role of Lisa on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. So, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air went off the air in '96. The Lisa storyline came in probably around season 4, late season 4. Um, and by that point, I think Nikki went from being a baby to being in kindergarten. But I'm doing the math, right? Sheree and Will didn't divorce until like late, actually late '95. They were together a good while, legally married, almost 4 or 5 years. Um, and there's word as to what caused her to file for divorce from Will, involving Benny Medina. So here's the thing, though. I'm not really tripping off of this. It's like, what could you possibly tell us in this book? I mean, is most of the book going to be about her upbringing, more about her childhood, um, her her friendship with Tupac? You know, they go all the way back to like the early Mondam and Mall days, and they were even like in some of the ads back in the day. Like, give us like most of, the era from Baltimore to A Different World. Like walk us through that. You know what I mean? Because when you think about Jada Pinkett's career, right? She has a decent sized, a nice catalog of movies. But I understand that like at some point, I think the moment things got serious with Will and she got married to Will, she kind of put the movie career and the television career on the back burner, doing sporadic things, and I get it. Um, Myself being a Virgo, very committed to health and balance and looking after the family and stuff. So I can understand that, like, late '90s, early 2000s, right around the time that she started having kids, her and Will started having kids, is that was the focus for a while, and you really didn't see a whole lot of output. And I get it. Like, Will Smith, Independence Day was already out, Bad Boys was already out, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air money was looking good those last couple of seasons. So Jada was good to go. Um, so it's like, don't really care particularly about the celebrity part. You don't have to dish on, your movement through Hollywood. We don't really care too much about that. I think hopefully this book, I know a lot of y'all will buy it, just aims to give Jada more of a voice. One that's hopefully not too annoying and not too much red table talkish. Like, she's been in the industry for a good while, but we don't really know a whole lot about her outside of what they talk about on Red Table Talk, which isn't, after a while, that shit starts to run together. But of course, she's going to talk about the Oscar slap. That was part of the interview with Hoda Gotta Be There. Which I thought that shit was staged. Because that hand was too strong and that stance was just too forced from where I was sitting in my living room. And it didn't even look like, you couldn't even tell that it connected, but she said that she thought it was a skit. And after Will came back to the chair next to her, she asked him if he was okay. Girl, did you not just watch and hear what we saw and heard? And of course, the entire firestorm at that moment was like, hey, that was some bullshit, because there was so much history being made that night. And that moment overshadowed not only the entire evening, that is the award ceremony, but also the history that was being made. Like 2 weeks, 6 months, a year, even up until now, people are still talking about the slap. Nobody discussed that much about the fact that that was the first Oscar night produced by a black man, Will Packer. There was so much integration in the hosting segments. We always talk about how Oscars be so white and all this other jazz, but nobody discussed any of that. And yes, Will Smith has been banned from the show for a decade, but also they may not let a lot of us behind the scenes anymore. It's just the kind of world that we live in, where it's like, as long as they have a reason, in some circles, it'll always be us against them. And that's why we're always looked at to persevere and survive. It's fucked up, but it's just the kind of world that we live in, where we have to do the best that we can and accept ourselves as we navigate through this world. But we don't discuss, that enough. And it's, looking back, like I got over it in about a couple of weeks, but it was just so sad. He got the Oscar, but even that got overshadowed because you slapped another man. And not only that, another black man, yes, but it looks like you can't take a joke. And people had a lot to say at the beginning about, Jada lost her hair and it was so disrespectful and this and that. Fucking joke. Just like you're kind of expected when it's like Ricky Gervais or Kevin Hart or Billy Crystal when they host and they have their monologues, and Robin Williams, rest in peace, or Whoopi Goldberg. It's like to limit or, chastise or judge one comedian or a couple comedians because that's not your style or your taste of comedy, or I would never do that. Well, you're not the one that's doing it. And let the producers do their job. If you don't like the joke, just go on about it. Your business. Some people are like, oh, well, it's just a man standing up for his wife. To the point of public shame and public embarrassment, you made that entire evening about yourself. And you took it away from people that host and people that produce the show to other nominees. And it was just really, really weird. I had the same reaction Lupita had when Will was yelling from his chair. And the gag is, y'all were separated then. Like, I get it. Like, you want to honor your wife and everything. Y'all are living separately. And maybe that was the elephant in the room at that time, where he was. They show up to the. Think about it. They show up to the events together the last 7 years from their individual domiciles. They put on for the camera, have a lot of y'all believe that they're still strong, they're still superhuman, they can get through anything, all because they dress up real nice and they're on the red carpet. Going back to my earlier point about glamorizing and wrapping one's life into the image of others, right? They were separated then. And I get it. You can honor your wife and defend her or whatever, but you don't have to do it at the detriment of an entire room. If you and Jada and Chris are friends, y'all could have that conversation on the side. And I still say part of that shit was staged. Because it was awkward as shit and very cringy. So, they were talking about that. Jada thought it was a skit. I thought it was forced. There's other stuff they say in the book that she talks about. But it's like I said earlier, the last 10 years, maybe 15 years, y'all have been more about taking a stance and being performative and, against an establishment that you've benefited from, profited from, sustained a living off of almost 30 years. And maybe like 5 minutes into the Oscar rebellion that you guys were staging years ago, 5 minutes into that, we moved on to something else. Concussion was okay. I think that was probably around the time that we were like, Oscars are so white. But it's like, you kind of have to like meet that industry halfway. And if I'm not mistaken, a lot of people or their agents or people behind the scenes on some of these movies and TV shows nominate these people, or the actors and actresses nominate themselves, or at least put their name in for your consideration, which is, I think, the first couple of steps before you get to even be officially part of the nominees. And if other black actors and actresses and producers and directors are not doing that, meeting the industry halfway, or forgot about it or probably didn't get around to it, it's ultimately up to the artist to initiate that first step. So, why are you looking at us? Like, we can't do anything about it. And quiet as it's kept, a lot of us stopped watching years ago. It hasn't been the same since Halle Berry won and Denzel won, which, looking back, that was all political anyway. Out of all the performances you could have given these people their Oscars for Best Actor, Best Actress, you picked the performance where Denzel's a crooked cop and the performance where Halle is doing the bending for a white guy. Talking about image. I don't know what more ground she could possibly cover from this book and what the goal is at this point. Like, I like Jada Pinkett-Smith, don't get me wrong. And I like Will. And I saw Jada's mom down at Busboys and Poets in Columbia, Maryland a couple of months ago. I was down there having brunch. near the kitchen. I was at the table facing the front door, and I saw a woman and a guy come in together. And I said, "Wait, I think that's Miss Pinkett." And I was with my friends. They were like, "No, I don't think so." But one of them decided to just run a Google search, and sure enough, we looked at the picture of the two of them on a red carpet at one of the events, and it was the same two people. Very nice lady. Didn't know she still lived or they still lived in Baltimore or whatever. I thought she lived near the red table, but that's just me. Like, don't get me wrong, I like the two of them. I just don't get why a memoir or a tell-all, especially if I know you're not gonna tell all of everything. And we talked about on the podcast this season of the memoir. Like, Deborah Lee was supposed to be releasing one. That came and went. Bob Johnson's ex-wife, on the heels of that news, was releasing one. That came and went. Like, I just don't get it. And just like Jada Pinkett went on the morning show and divulged some wild tea or, cold tea for some of us, Deborah Lee went on the morning show, and out of all the things, I was just like, this is what you want your legacy tied to? Like, it's one thing to have it in the book. You could have talked about anything else in the morning show. And I know you screened the questions before you went on. Or they screened it with you. I'm assuming as much. And I get, like, you want to be transparent and honest, but god damn, Bob Johnson was catching strays from that end and then from his ex-wife. But you know what? Like I said on the I Refuse podcast, none of my business. I mean, it's a circus at this point. I laugh, get my popcorn, and move on to something else. I don't know. I guess I have to, like, get intrigued a little bit more. Like, what don't I already know the last 15, 20 years that this book is going to tell me? And what is the approach or the perspective here? Is this going to be like more of a self-help kind of thing? As the child of a former drug addict, are we going to use, I guess, the trauma and the experience from that as like a springboard to inspire other women? Or is this just a tell-all memoir about everything? And how much are you going to tell us? Like, Scientology, that church over there, like Fort Knox. And I bet every member is up to their knees in paperwork with NDAs, what you can disclose, what you can't. And there's always that third eye or that sixth sense following you and watching you and stuff like that. So you probably can't divulge too much about the Church of Scientology. And is the memoir, I'm curious, going to be on the level of like Quincy Jones level type of tea? Are you going to just, one of those, I don't have much time left, I'm going to just tell everything? Well, curious. I know one of y'all out there is going to probably get the book or probably download the PDF because, gas is high. It's like, what, $8 damn dollars out in California? So, I don't know. I'm going to go and see what these interviews are about, read a little bit more and see what the point is. Because it's like, Jada is a household name in Black culture. A lot of us over here love A Different World. Love Will Smith. But like, Will Smith's memoir came and went. Like, there wasn't a whole lot of discussion about, oh, did it make the New York's bestsellers list? Was there a lot of people that ran out and trampled a lot of people to get to the book? Like, it came and went. Will Smith is like a big name still, kind of, sort of. Jada, the jury's still out on that one. It's like, all jokes aside, though, I just don't know. I just don't know about it. Um, is she going to dish about Will and Dwayne, allegedly? Um, why was Dwayne's house in Will's name, allegedly? And what all happened between Benny and Will, allegedly? Why is Benny no longer Will's manager, allegedly? Intrusive thoughts always went on the I Refuse podcast, allegedly. I don't know, maybe it's too little, too late. Maybe 20 years ago, a book would have been nice. But what else is Jada doing that's interesting? And what information will be in the book that hasn't already been discussed on the Red Table Talk? I was looking at it from a business perspective. You know, went to college, business administration, master's degree, double bachelor's. Get into it. Just thought I'd come up on here and ask y'all. I like Jill. I like Jada. I like Will. They cute. I don't know what else you can do to surprises at this point. I don't know why we are so I don't know why y'all are so setting yourselves on fire at this cold ass tea. A lot of people in Hollywood have been separated longer and do just fine. It's just, I think it's like a generational thing. Like, they're not the only separated couple that still married legally, still made an agreement early on that they're never going to get a divorce. But yeah, at some point, once they get into living separately, they realize that's what works for them. Danny DeVito, Rhea Perlman have been separated, still married, at least 10 years. They've been living separately, moving on about life separately. Actually, they live close to each other, and they have grown-ass kids, like kids in their 30s. And Rhea Perlman said on Watch What Happens Live years ago when she was up there with Whoopi Goldberg that they actually get along a lot better separated than they did the last couple of years that they were living together married. And they're still married. It's, at some point you just realize, especially at that age, it's like, there's really, what's the point of even getting divorced? Like, it works fine. They've been together since the 70s, probably around the time that he was on Taxi, long before she got on Cheers. But that's the other thing, is like, married couples that live separately is not a new phenomenon. And it's actually a lot more healthier for the parties involved to do that. And there's nothing that says there's anything wrong with that. If you actually think about it, when you were like 4 or 5 years old and you were seeing your father sometimes come around, circle the block, come back around to the house and act like nothing was wrong, you were too young to be in adult business. You had 4 or 5 aunts that always reminded you to stay out of adult business. You never asked questions. But looking back, you were like, this is the same shit. This is the same shit. The same shit. It's what they've been doing. this is not news. This is not anything new. This has been going on. This sort of thing has been going on for years amongst adults. I'm sure both of their kids and Trey, I almost said the other one, were well aware. And I think a lot of people are probably going to miss the point of the book, why it's called Worthy to begin with. Like, they're probably going to pick up the book and be like, ooh, this is going to be a spicy read. And Jada may be like, well, when I was down at the Mondawmin Mall, I just realized I wasn't worthy in 1985. It wasn't until I was walking down the old dusty trail in Hartford County, bumped into Debbie Allen, and I ended up on a different world. And then Low Down Dirty Shame came, and then I met Will at some point, and he whisked me away in his horse and carriage. And it was like fairy tales, just like Anita Baker said. The end. Don't mind me, y'all. I'm just it's not that big of a deal. You look up in your family tree right now, you got an aunt and uncle that's been separated for 40 years, and they still kick it. And you at your big age doing this. Is it true? Is it not? What's going on over there? How come uncle's always at the barbecue, but they'll never leave together in the same car? It's called an understanding. It's called an understanding. When you have somebody, you get to a certain point in your marriage or your relationship where you're just like, you realize you're not really tripping. And, yeah, you have arguments and stuff. You may even realize, oh, I can't deal with this motherfucking at this moment. So we're just going to live separately. The kids are grown. We probably still date, but I'm not to the point where I'm going to go down to the courthouse and file for a legal divorce and go through all that. It's going to get really expensive. And he still kind of blows my back out every now and then. Makes sense to me. And they're adults. Like, still kind of stay out of adult business. Let them, however you revere them, weirdos, super couple. Like, at some point, you just have to detach your idea of a relationship or the idea or the attraction of a Will and Jada, super couple, so to speak, and come down to reality. Those of y'all out here that are listening to this or watching this thinking, oh, they let me down, please. Like, we all got over that hump when it came out that Jay-Z was cheating on Beyonce. And y'all don't even know how soon he was doing it. I have my theory though. Like, I think he was doing it real bad around 4. But please, that's adult business. There's some greater shit happening right now that we probably should be more concerned about. Like, it's 2023, almost 2024. We're almost the Jetson up this motherfucker. Still got school buildings where you send your kids without central AC and central heating. How come we're not talking about that woman in, I think, Connecticut? White woman walked up into a police station with a loaded gun, pointing it at her head, pointing it at the bulletproof glass where the police officer sit. And she got arrested, put in holding or whatever. They were able to do her mugshot alive. Why don't we talk about that? This is Mr. Fox I Refuse podcast. Season 5 is available everywhere. Wherever you get your podcasts and your music. We also have a Twitter at I Refuse Podcast, and Instagram at I Refuse Podcast _ between the words. And we have the YouTube channel. So follow, subscribe, show love. Also game stream on Twitch. Also have a YouTube channel, personal one, where I have all my little game streaming stuff. And we also have the usual suspects in the I Refuse Podcast After Dark available as well, where you get your podcast and your music. And I will catch you guys later. Fendi, like the bag. This is the I Refuse.